Hi, everyone. Welcome. I hope everybody's doing okay. I can see that we have many international guests here. I would like to start the event today, and I'm curious if you can hear me. I saw that there is a question about no voice, and today is going to be just me. So I'm curious to see if you can hear me just fine, or if we have an audio problem or something like that. So I'd like to say. Welcome everyone to the event today. We have folks from Toronto, California, Atlanta, Brazil, Philadelphia, California, Santa Cruz, Egypt. Wow, we are really international today. Perfect. Well, I'm so happy to have everybody here today. I wonder if there's other people around the globe. I can see that we have like folks from Africa, Asia, Europe. Yeah, Nimit is right. Today I cannot make fun of with my name, Calado. But yeah, so welcome everybody to the event today. I'm going to start to talk. Today is going to be a little bit different event from the other events of the series. I would like to say that I tried to have about 6 different speakers, but the calendar didn't work out for everybody. And then I was kind of hitting the deadline to make the event. And then it got in a point that I'm just like, okay, I think this is something that we need to talk about it. So let me, see what I can do. And then I decided to do a presentation. If anyone like to, I don't know, have a conversation through the chat or maybe join the event, we can see how we can make this happen through this event. So what is this series about? So the event is about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And diversity is a really broad topic. This concept is really broad, right? We could be talking here about language, gender, ethnicity, nationality, location, culture, political views, sexual orientations, and social class, and many other different topics related to diversity. All of these are about diversities. And when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're saying that diversity is about everyone is being different, and we understand that. Equity is about offering fair and equitable access to opportunity. And inclusion is basically we investing energy in doing actions to create environments that respect and value all people. So this event is about this. We want to have you having these discussions. We would like to have you helping us to make an inclusive, respectful, and opening experience for everyone. Today is going to be just me here. So if we say, it's just me, right? I'm here to learn as you, and I'm human as well. I'm still learning, and I'm trying to do my best. I think everybody's trying to do their best. But we're here to, learn and share as well. Also, if you have any questions or any comments that you'd like to do during the presentation, I'm doing the presentation and I'm reading the comments. So I'm trying to make this really interactive as possible. And also, if you like to keep the conversations going with everybody, there is an event on LinkedIn that you can find everybody that is here, or there is a chat open over there. If you like to try that out, you can just go to the LinkedIn and look for this event, and then you can try to have access to it. I can see we have some comments and questions. There is one question from Scott, for example. Is closed captions available? It will be after this event. The platform that I'm using doesn't support embedding captions online. I can tell you one platform that I really tried, but it didn't work out. It's called Web Captioner. It's for free. And if this was an in-person event, I would strongly recommend you to try that platform. It's, you can just open your computer and then you're going to see the captions displaying. I tried really hard to make it available in the bottom part, but it didn't work out. But I know that YouTube is going to add captions after this event. So wait a few hours and it's going to be there. Before I start, there is something that I would like to remember everybody that we are here as an ally. Everybody can be an ally. You can be an ally too and try to make the difference. we're trying to help everybody to have these conversations and to have different perspectives about different topics when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we would like to have you or have a conversation with you about that. Okay? So for the event today, it's going to be, as I said, a little bit different from the other events. Today, I try to have different speakers with me, but because of the calendar conflicts and everyone's this availability, we were not able to have like a panel like in the other events. So I decided to have a presentation instead of canceling this event because I personally think this is a really important thing to have a conversation about it. Before I start to have I don't know if anyone has a comment or I don't know if I'm still online because suddenly it's so quiet here. Am I online? I wonder if everybody can leave a comment. Let me try my phone. Oh, am I? Perfect. Okay, perfect. I am online. I was, for a moment, was so quiet that I was just like, oh, I think my internet died, but I think I'm here. Yeah, am I here? Yes, I am here. Perfect. I can just, see myself here below. Perfect. So I don't know if you ever asked it yourself, but I wonder if you ever question it yourself about what happened when a blind person wants to use a chatbot or a conversational application. Have you ever thought about this? Have you ever, I don't know, took a moment to think what happens? I'm curious. Can you leave a comment in the YouTube chat to see like if you ever thought about this, if you ever try it to use like a chatbot or like a Alexa skill or like a Google Home, Google Action as a blind person? Have you ever tried to do something like this? Let's see what people are going to say. I'm giving some time so you can type something. I did try it with a screen reader. Sure. I'm just reading the comments that you're adding here. Like one person said that she did try it with a screen reader. Yeah, actually, I did try to do that, something like that. And unfortunately, it needs some work. Yeah, that's the thing. You're right. Yes, I watched people use Chatbot with a screen reader. My mom is visually impaired, and it was very difficult. It was very difficult for her. When driving, you can look down at the screen. Try to utilize Siri. Yeah, I think these are really valid use cases. And as you can see, everybody kind of needs this once in a while. And you might be thinking that this is something that I'm just planning for this event or prepared for this presentation, but actually, back in 2017, January 2017, I wrote an article about that on Medium. You can look for that; it's available. I was thinking about this event, like, well, I'm having problems to find someone. I have some things that I can share. And I was reflecting about this article that I wrote 4 years ago. It's public. It's on the UX Collective blog. You can go there and read it. And this is also my most viewed article that I have on Medium, which is a blog platform. And for me personally, this was a really interesting article because I got to know so many interesting people. And while I was writing this article, I got to learn so many interesting things. And back then, I was really surprised that we didn't have much to talk about that, because at that time, we didn't have enough academic research about that. Today, I'm really happy to say that we have more academic papers about this. We have more people talking about this. And just here to have about 300 people sign up for this event, that was for me really interesting. So I think that this is something that we should be talking about more. And another thing that about this article that you can see that if you go to that article and read it, there is one reply that I got it that is still, every time that I read it, I'm just reflecting about this. This was from a person that was a software developer and worked for the Guardian skill. And he and his team developed the skill for the news magazine. I think it's an English news source. And then he got a reply for like a reader, like a customer sent them an email. And on this email, there is a really interesting passage that's basically like, hey, good afternoon. I really need this message to get out to all those people who have gone to the trouble of creating the Guardian app for Alexa. I'm a quadriplegic, and the Amazon icon has transformed my life. I haven't been able to open a newspaper for 10 years, but now I can. So this, for me, I was so blown away because I never thought that this article could introduce me to these side stories that we never heard of it. So I personally believe that accessibility for chatbots can be great for everyone. And if you think this is a really small improvement in your product or something like that, I kind of disagree with that. Because about 1 billion of people around the world, that's about 15% of the world's population experience some sort of disability. That's a big number of people when you see in a global scale. And many of these people, they're likely to experience some adverse socioeconomic outcomes that persons without disabilities. So we need to make sure that we are offering equitable opportunities for everyone. And we are creating digital experiences that can be helpful for everyone. I think that by now, you know that I'm from Brazil. Down here in Brazil, about 24% of the Brazilians, they declare that they have some degree in at least one of the investigated skills, that this is how the Brazilian government call it, which is about seeing, hearing, walking, or climbing steps. So 1 out of 4 Brazilians, they have some level of disability. And this is really personal, but I have some small level of color blindness. So sometimes I'm not able to see or understand the differences between colors. So I personally, I don't trust myself to make any decisions related to color. I would rather to have someone to make a decision for me rather than myself trying to make a call on this. And if you don't think about that, there might be some problems, small problems that you may encounter on digital experiences. And we, as designers or people who make these experiences, we should be able to address these little things that might sound kind of little, but this can have a big improvement in everyone's life. And one thing that we should consider is that for many people, technology makes things easier, but for people with disabilities, technology can make things possible. So when we are creating these digital experiences, we need to be mindful, and we need to try to address these needs in a way that everyone can have access to the same sort of experiences. So on this presentation, I would like to focus on 3 different things. One is about the idea that everyone benefits from accessibility. You may not agree with that. Hopefully I can give you some ideas or different ideas to think about that. Also, I would like to share with you some thoughts about accessibility on chatbots. And basically, I would like to tell you what I discovered 4 years ago and how things are today. Some of the things that kind of changed, and some of the things that didn't change, and some of the new things that back then, I never thought that we would have a problem with this, but today we do have it. And then I would like to share with you some challenges and some extra food for thought so you can think or reflect or even do an exercise about this after this event. I'm really curious also if you have any questions or comments to do. Again, I'm trying to read the comments and do the presentation at the same time. So sometimes I might be just like this because I'm trying to make sure that I'm be able to address your questions and comments. But you can be just leaving comments or questions, and we're going to try to address all of these in the end of this event. Okay? So let me take a sip of water. Oh, I'm surprised that someone read my article. So I'm so honored to read this. Thank you for the comment. This is going to be interesting. So first, everyone benefits from accessibility. But to tell you how or why these people benefits from accessibility, it's important for me to explain you what is accessibility and what is disability. Accessibility is a word to describe whether a product can be used by people of all abilities, and disability is a mismatch in an interaction between the features of a person's body and the features of the environment in which they live. So sometimes we create products that they do not address these these person's bodies and features that this person's body has. And when we don't do that, we might be creating like a not really inclusive or accessible experience because this person is not going to be able to have access or to use your product. Think about like climbing up like a stairs. If you don't have a ramp, how is going to be possible for a wheelchair person to climb up or go to like the second level? So if you don't think about that, you're going to be a problem because these people, they're going to be left out, and that can be a problem for you. I don't know how it is in other countries, but for example, in Brazil, we have some accessibility laws that if you don't address that, you might be charged by the government of Brazil. And depending of the severity of this law breaking, you might get in really problems. So there are some teams today they're dedicated to try to make sure that the products or digital experiences, they are really accessible. Sometimes it's not really sometimes people, they don't address this at first. They see these more like a law requirement, but they don't realize that when you address or try to make an inclusive experience right at first, you might be kind of creating an inclusive experience for everyone. So you don't need to be worrying about the laws. So we need to break down this idea that we're trying to be compliant with a law rather than, we don't need to be compliant with a law. We need to be trying to address or creating something that people can have access to it. So if you can just change this mindset, I think that everybody would be happy about it to have access to, any type of services. And today, you can think that there are many different types of disabilities. It can be vision, hearing, speech, mobility, learning, neurodiversity. I mean, it can be any type of limitation, not limitations, but not specific abilities that a person's body has. So you need to try to think how you can address this in a really accessible way. Also, you may disagree again, but I strongly believe that everyone benefits from accessibility. I don't know who said it here. I was kind of trying to find this, but someone said here that, well, I try to use Siri while I'm driving, and that's the perfect scenario. Like if you're able to just talk to your digital assistant while you're driving, this can be also helpful for everyone, a person that is like a quadriplegic person, because this person can also have just a conversation with a digital assistant. Also, when you think about vision, I use glasses. If I take it out my glasses, I can read. I kind of can read it here, but I cannot see really far away. Imagine like you not being able to see it. And my home, for example, I can just ask things or say things, and it's going to happen here. I can ask Alexa to change the lights or ask about my calendar or something like that. And also, you can be like a person that is in a wheelchair. Like when you're walking the street, for example, if you have ramps for you, that would be great. But if you were just walking by and you have lots of luggages and you need to walk around with these luggages, having some ramps would be really helpful for you as well, because you can just like use the ramps to move your luggages or something like that. So you see, these little things that can be helpful for a group of people can also be helpful for other group of people. I mean, everybody can benefit from this idea that having this little addressment, like the question that someone asked here earlier today, like about the captions. I'm really looking forward for this, but I don't have the tools to make this happen right now. But I know that after this event, the captions is going to be added anyway. So I think that the way that we're going, many of these technologies today, they're able to address these accessibility needs. So when we think about accessibility needs, especially on chatbots, many people, they think that their products, they are universal and inclusive, until the day that they discover the lack of accessibility. And that honestly was kind of me, like 4 or 5 years ago. That was back in 2016. I was doing like a UX research about an autonomous car. I was kind of asked to design a car that people would trust in the car. And in my mind, I thought that, well, I think that conversation is a really interesting way to build trust on people. I wonder how people would feel about that, having a conversation with a car. Would that make them more comfortable in having a conversation with a car or not? So I decided to have some conversations with different people. And then I found a lady. She used to live in California. And I have like a 2 hours conversation with her. Remember, that was back in 2016, okay? It was around June, July. And yeah, so it was like about 2 hours conversation. And I was asking her about how she take care of herself every day. She used to live, she still to live by herself. She has a dog, guiding dog. And she uses a lot her iPhone to help her to look things around in the house. So sometimes when she's not sure about something, she could just open an app and ask someone to read it, what was kind of in front of her. The name of the app was Be My Eyes. Today it's kind of big, but at the time they were just learning how to use it. And she was talking to me a lot about how she actually uses a lot her dog and her phone as like an interface to have access and to understand what was happening around her. And she was really helpful for me because she could describe me in detail about how she used that. And I didn't say, but she was also a person who had vision, and she lost her vision around 35, 40 years. And she was telling me how she did this transition around her 40s and the challenges that she had. So I got really emotional in the interview, and I got really emotional after the interview, kind of thinking about like, that's so interesting how she dealt with everything. So and on that time, I'm still today. I'm still right. I'm really advocate for conversational UI. At the time I was saying, I'm still saying today, but I was really hyped with the idea of creating conversational experiences because, as I said, I think the conversation is a really interesting way to build trust in relations. And then I decided to give it a try. Well, she said that she uses a lot voice, Apple's voiceover applications, which is a screen reader by Apple that you can have it on your iPhone pretty much. And then I decided to give it a try on the famous messaging apps on that time. So back in 2017, I learned that conversational UIs, specifically messaging apps, the most used ones, they were not really inclusive, like in many different ways. And I found really specific problems that would apply to many of the main applications. And I'm not saying like a company's chatbot. I'm saying like a big, well-used messaging app that were having these problems. And also, when I was writing that article, I didn't find any academic paper about this topic. I only found one from 2018 that briefly talked about it. So I was just like, oh, why no one's talking about this? So I decided to talk about that. And if you maybe you can tell me what is the movie reference for the name of the article. We need to talk about accessibility on chatbots. If you watch really indie movies, you know the movie that I'm talking about. But yeah, I really needed to express out that. So today, when I look back and think about the things that we found it, or the things that address it in the article, I think that many of the problems that I talk about it, they were kind of solved. We have today different problems, and problems, as I said before, that I didn't imagine that we would have, especially, for example, with emojis. I don't know if you know, but emojis can be a problem. If not well use it, can be a big problem. And also, I learned that we have more papers about that. I can point you to 5 different papers about that. Excuse me. I'm happy to say that five from 2 of these articles, they're from Brazilians that I kind of know them. And we kind of got to know after the publication, and I was so happy for them publishing this. And it's really interesting. I think you should take a look. If you go to ResearchGate and just type accessibility on chatbots, you're going to find many of these articles, but it's not many, it's just 5. And I'm curious, maybe there are more. So if you can leave a comment there. I don't know if there is another comment, but yeah. So what was the problem that I found? Basically, many of the problems are related to software development rather than chatbots itself. I consider chatbots as a software also, like people need to develop the chatbot, or you can use tools that abstracts the way that you develop your chatbot. But there is a passage on one of the Mozilla's guides for accessibility that I think that is really interesting that says this. Systems are rarely designed with the needs of people with disabilities in mind. In fact, it's very common that users who are blind or physically disabled are unable to use some applications. And this still happens today. So I think that if chatbots can be also considered a software that anyone can just talk or have a conversation either through voice or chat, they might have some of these issues as well. So I decided to run little experiments to see how that would go. And then I learned some of these things. So I'd like to this is a video that I'm going to show you. I'm going to stop speaking for a moment and just to show you what is going to happen here. So this was a video that I recorded in July 2016, something like that. And let me just add it here so you can see it. And then I'm going to present the video. It's just me trying to have a conversation with a chatbot on Messenger. And then you're going to see what's going to happen. If you like to do an experiment with me, you can just close your eyes and try to see what I'm trying to do.
Oh. Typically replies instantly. Hi, Kyle. I'll give you a personal weather forecast that will make you smile, whatever the weather. Let's start talking. Get started button. Hi Ponchoist. Hi Poncho. Hi Poncho. 12. Oh, hello again, Kyle. I hope you've been well. What would you like to hear? Scene. Text field. Double tap to edit. Text field. Double tap to edit. Text field. Double tap to edit. Button.
So this was, yeah, some of the problems
Text
that I
field.
started to face. Like,
Button.
as you can see, this is a quick reply
Text
and was
field.
considered as a text
Text
field.
field.
And
Hi, Poncho.
that was really confusing because I could see what was going on. But
Hi,
then the
Poncho.
button was labeled
12.
as a text
Oh,
field.
hi, Poncho. 12. 1. One photo attached. Scene.
This is another problem. Like this is an image with
Text
some
field.
really important information that
Double tap to
I was
edit.
not able to understand what was that because the voiceover understood that was just an attachment, and yeah, it could not read the meaning of that attachment. So that can be a problem too. And again, some of these little problems they were fixed, but some others they were not fixed. And when I was kind of trying to see if that was also applies to other conversational applications, I learned that some others well-known applications they were not really accessible. For example, one was not able to read some of the text messages, which text is just a text is the main way of interact, and voiceover was not able to understand it. Also, another one was that voiceover was not able to recognize the buttons, and I was not able also to click on these buttons. And also, some other applications, for example, they would let voiceover know that that was kind of an item, but it was kind of confusing and hard for me to interact with it. Imagine yourself, like I was aware about the application and how it works, but even for me, it was really confusing about what was going on there. And many of the labels was really confusing. So many of these problems today, they were kind of addressed. Some of them they were fixed, but some others we still have to face it and some things to change. And this is when I would like to bring you some ideas of these challenges that we still have it today and how we can address this. I can see here in the chat that people got interested about the idea of emojis. They can share some meanings, and they can also, I think, as Alfonso said, they can have different meanings depending how they are used. Yeah, that's kind of my take on it. But we're going to have a conversation about this in a moment. Let me just drink a little bit more water. I wonder if any of you has another question or comment. I'm just reading some of the comments here. I don't know about you, but my mind is a little bit confusing because I'm trying to think about the presentation and also try to address the chat, but that's okay, no problem. So when we talk about accessibility, accessibility is the practice of making your websites, but I'm just trying to say conversational UIs, usable by as many people as possible. We traditionally think of this as being about people with disabilities, but the practice of making sites accessible also benefits other groups, such as those using mobile devices or those with slow network connections. And this can be great as well. There are some principles that we can try to follow to try to make an application accessible. One of the great ones that you can definitely check that out and try to see how you can adopt this in your workflow is to check the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which is a really actionable guidelines that you can it's basically 4 different principles, and then you can combine this in different ways and try to address this in your applications. So the 4 principles are: 1, perceivable. Users must be able to perceive it in some way using one or more of their senses. Also, operable. Users must be able to control the UI elements, like they need to be able to click in the buttons, mouse, or keyboards. So that's why we are able to kind of, for example, use tab and then just see like a shadow kind of move in the screen. There are some ways that you can set these up for your applications. Also, understandable. The content must be understandable for its users. And last but not least, robust. The content must be developed and use well-adopted web standards that will work across different browsers now and in the future. That's why we need to have open source standards, because this can help us to address this in a scalable way, especially because we are having so many digital applications today and digital services that if we don't have these guides or these principles on mind, we can buy, it's like constructing a house in a sand that is just going to fall apart. That can be really dangerous. So we need to have these foundations of principles that can be useful for everyone. So how can we use this, or how can we address these principles in conversational UIs? I would like to share with you 4 different how-tos. One of them, which is what this series is about, is to think about being an allyship to accessibility. There is a really interesting saying that says that nothing about us without us, which says that sometimes many people talk about these topics, but they don't actually try it out with people with disabilities. I'm saying this, and I'm a little sad as well, because, for example, we should have more people with disabilities working in the industry. In Brazil, for example, last year, with the community, we run a survey with the workforce to see if we could find someone, a person with disability working in the industry, and we didn't find anyone working with conversational applications, like focus it 100%. And that for me was kind of mind-blowing, that we should have more people with disabilities working in the industry, because they can show us things that we are not maybe addressing, or maybe we're not seeing that at first. So we should have them with us. And also we need to open space so they can speak up and be part of this market, the industry as well. So I think this is a really important discussion to have, because sometimes people, they just don't know that they can be part of that as well. So you should be part of this conversational trend as well. Another thing that you can do to try to address this is to think about inclusive content, which was basically the example that I showed to you, I think, a few slides ago. Like, imagine yourself asking for an application like, hey, show me the weather. And then the application comes back to you like with nothing, just like an empty space. Sometimes, for example, if you just do little adjustments, especially in the conversations that you're designing, you might be able to address this. So on the top, I'm showing to you like one interaction, show me the weather, and then the conversational UI brings back to you like an attachment. Could be like a card with the content of the weather's prediction. But another way to do the same thing, but trying to address this in a more inclusive way, is just to describe what's the main information about this card. Sometimes we just don't think that these little things can have a huge impact when it comes to inclusiveness. And you can think about that too, as you, the designer, designing this conversation. Another thing to think about it is the neutral language, or neutral and inclusive language. And this is more like broader than accessibility. This is more like trying to be gender friendly to everyone. I think that one really common saying, it's like, hey guys, I mean, in English, doesn't happen much if you're careful with that. But in my native language, Portuguese, this can be really tricky, because Portuguese is a male-first language. And if I'm not aware of this, I might just be talking to like a male audience, not with everybody. So this is a really great example, like, hey guys, welcome to our conference. And then you might be talking to like a girl, or someone that doesn't have a gender, or something like this. There are some ways, or neutral ways, to deal with this. Like, we can just take it out, the gender part of it, or we can just be direct to the point, to the main message. And also, there's different things that we need to change. And I think that people are starting to change this on this really hidden meaning. that sometimes we address, or we have these social constructions on our minds that sometimes we put like male first in front of others, and that is not really the case. Uh, and there are many different small adjustments that you can think of it, like mankind could be about humankind, chairman can be just the chair, congressman can be just the legislation or legislator. And yeah, there is many other examples that I could just list here. I can tell you one from Brazil that is really confusing, but I would need to explain you a little bit more. But just to tell you, whenever we talk about developers in Brazil, that can be a really fight because Portuguese is a really gender language. Many Latin languages are kind of gender language. If I could recommend you to read an article about this topic in a really short reading, there is a really cool article called Gender Inclusive Design is the Only Way. You can find it on UX Collective. And yeah, I think it's about 8 minutes reading. I found this UN recommendations about gender neutral language on this article. And you should definitely check this out. Let me actually add this in the chat. So this is the article. But I just added in the chat, so you can check that out later. Another thing that this is when we're going to talk about the emojis. This is the emojis problems. And I tried to, for a moment I thought to translate this to English, but then I thought that, well, it doesn't make sense because the guy, he's a Brazilian and he wrote it in Portuguese. So, but I can explain you what it is. So I'm showing you like an image of an article from a famous blind person from Brazil. His name is Gustavo. He wrote an article about have you ever thought about how blind people see your emojis? And then it's like a 3-4 minutes article of him explaining what happens when a screen reader reads an emoji and the problems that can have. Because some people, I don't know if you're one of these people, but if you are, just think for a moment, they like to add many emojis in a message, like, hey, clap, and then they add like 10 claps at once. Whenever someone is kind of reading, like a screen reading is reading this, it's going to be reading 10 times the emojis. And sometimes the meaning of the emoji doesn't make sense to the message or the topic of the conversation. So that can be a really struggle. So that is what this article is about. To compensate you, I looked for that, and also I found a really interesting article about emojis and accessibility, or the accessibility of the emojis, or how you can use them properly. And on this article, if I'm not wrong, there is about 6 up to 8 different tips. Excuse me, 6, up to 8 tips. Let me just drink some water. About how you can use emojis. And there are really, some of them that are really actionable, that you should be thinking about that. For example, the first tip is about do not use emojis to replace words. He has some comments about that. Like, instead of using a thumbs up, you should write it like. Another one is about do not put emojis before any important message or call to action. Text come first. And that's true, because if you put it first, the screen reader might read it, the meaning of the emoji first, and then read the word. And that can be kind of confusing for whoever's just reading that. And last but not least, he says something like this, do not use emoticons, which is just you using the characters of the emoji. And that can be a problem because the screen reader, it's not going to understand that that's a happy face. It might just assume that that's 2 little dots and a parenthesis, and that kind of doesn't make sense. If you use emoji instead, the screen reader is going to read it, the meaning of the emoji itself. So that's something to think about it. I do agree with some of the tips. Some others, I would just think a little bit more. For example, the very first one, I kind of, I don't know, I would say so, but depends how you're going to use it. And I think this is it. Like we can have this opportunity to agree, disagree, or kind of agree in the middle. So I'm adding here, this is the article. So you can take a look after this event as well. So I'm going to stop here real quick and see if we have any questions or any comments so far. I wonder if we have any questions or something that we should talk about it. Let me just take a look real quick. So this is a really cool, interesting. Ginger, she said that accessibility is even more critical now. At least 10% of people who have recovered from COVID have long-term of permanent damage. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, Megan. Beautiful example of inclusivity. We actually use text plus image common some of our bots where images might not load in places of no low network. Perfect. Yeah. You see, when you think about adding the content of like some attachments or images, this can be great for everyone. What about abbreviations and acronyms? That's a great question. Honestly, as I told you, I'm not, I'm Brazilian and I'm do speak in English right now. And sometimes in the US, people like to abbreviate a lot, some big words. And I am sometimes confused, like, what is the meaning of this? Like FUI or like thank you or TU, something like this. Right now, RN, something like this. Sometimes I get confused too. Yeah. We should be careful with that because sometimes it's a different type of you're addressing a different problem. Like I'm talking more about like being able of reading the content, but sometimes there is a problem of creating like a content with a really big cognitive load. Like when you say something kind of difficult that the person needs to stop to reflect about what you said, that can be really bad as well. So there is a comment from Afonso here. I conducted some research on how the same emojis can be interpreted differently, culturally, but also depending on your age. That's really true, Afonso. There is a really cool website. It's called emojipedia.org. That is like a Wikipedia, but of emojis. And they try to add meanings of the emojis that you use. Sometimes I like to check that out. And that can be true. Like I remember when I moved to the US, in Brazil at the time, I like to use the wink a lot, like the emojis like this. And then I learned that for some people, especially in college, emojis means that you're kind of hitting on someone. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's not the case. And yeah. All right, so let me just finish this presentation and then let's see if we have other questions. So another thing that I would like to say, and this is basically one of my last slides, is about some food for thoughts. So I don't know if you saw it, but this year we have a remote Google's I/O event. I checked some of the accessibility content this year, and there are two of them that really stand out for me. Excuse me. One was about voicify your Android app. For me, that was really interesting to see how Google is trying to push this and trying to make the applications more conversational in the meaning of like you're using an app and then Google Assistant can offer you some actions and then you can just say the action on your phone and your phone is going to get things done for you. So these are just a way for developers or any brand, right, to think about different ways to make the app more voicified in a sense, which is also a type of conversation, right? Another thing is about the using machine learning for accessibility. This is a really interesting problem, or the way that Google addresses this problem was a really interesting approach about reading the screen that people were using and using machine learning to try to suggest or replace or even add labels for particular buttons. Because some of the applications, once they are on the App Store and people download it, sometimes these apps, they do not follow the WCAG principles. And for screen readers, that can be a problem. So this was a presentation about how Google uses machine learning to try to address these problems. And as I said, it was a really interesting implementation, and you definitely should check that out. Another thing, though, it's I have a Brazilian friend who created a cards collections of the WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guide, which he tries to explain every single topic of the guide in a really accessible and digestible way. I think it's about 50, something like this, cards. You can find it in English, and you can take a look if you'd like to try it out. And also, there is a really interesting Microsoft Learn session on Microsoft Learn that there is, I think, is 2 hours of content. It's called Accessibility Fundamentals. And it teaches you how you can be more mindful about this and how you can use technology to make your environments more inclusive. And one last thing that I have to say is about, as I said in the beginning, like for many people, technology makes things easier. For people with disabilities, technology makes things possible. Accessibility means developing content to be as accessible as possible, no matter an individual's physical and cognitive abilities, and no matter how they access the web. And this is how I come back to the very first thing that I showed to you about having a person that is quadriplegic and is using a smart speaker device to have access to information like a newspaper source. So I'm still reflecting about this message that I got from this article that I wrote 4 years ago. And every time that I reflect about this, I'm still surprised about it, like the power that we have in our hands and how we can help everybody to have access to things. So so in this presentation, I talked to you about some of the benefits of or how everyone benefits from accessibility. I also share with you some ideas on accessibility on chatbots. Again, we're still learning and we have some new opportunities to improve some things and new challenges as well. Some of the challenges and food for thoughts that I shared with you was about the WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And then I showed to you some how tools or ways to leverage the WCAG. And I also add to you some learning docs, presentations about using machine learning with accessibility and others. But I'm curious, like, again, have you ever tried to see or to think about what happens when a blind person wants to use a chatbot? So these slides is available here on this link that I'm going to add in the chat. Like to check that out or have a copy of it or read it later. And let me just focus on the slides. There is also a QR code in the screen if you like to read it or scan to have access to the slides. And I don't know if anyone has a question or something to say about the presentation. I'm curious. So there is one question here. What are your ideas to make and e-commerce, which is so visually driven in 2021, more inclusive. Yeah, Nina is saying like, how do we ask a question? Should we just talk? Yeah, you can send a message. But if you'd like to join me here, and again, you're going to join me here on stage, you can access live on the backstage. You can access this link here that I'm adding to the chat. So you can just join me live. But Miga, so today there's two trends that is happening in digital e-commerces. One is I don't remember the name in English, but it's physical stores for e-commerces. Here in São Paulo, if anyone knows the name of this, please just leave in the chat. But basically, these are physical stores of online commerces that people can just go there and try things out. It's not like a big store, but it's a small store that you can try the products. Also, you can think about using the feature that people are calling today that is called live commerce, if I'm not wrong, which is basically this live event where people can just present the product, address questions, and talk to the audience on real time. So they're trying to make like a really live experience of trying the product, even though it's a virtual interaction of the product. I can see that we have two people here in the backstage. If I can add them in the live stream, they can just do something like this. Perfect. So let me just. Hi, Nina. How are you?
Hi, is it Caio? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
perfect. Right. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you. Thanks so much for hosting this talk. I think this is a topic that is really important and that I'm very interested in. And my father is actually visually impaired. I'm a UX designer who would love to get into more voice design work, but he uses screen readers to access technology. And he was talking to me recently about emojis and how he can't see them. Screen readers and voiceover on iPhone can't handle them. And I'm wondering, from your knowledge, and I'm sorry if you covered this, I came in a little late, I'll admit, the big tech companies that really have the resources to push forward accessibility technology, do they or does anybody else out there on the marketplace have some way of making things like emoji and visual portions of the web more accessible to people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was talking to a friend about this. I think it was this week or last week. I don't know if everybody knows, but it takes about 2 years to have an emoji publish it. Did you know that?
Insane.
Yeah, that's crazy. You need to submit a paper and explain why that particular emoji is usable or needed for different cultures. I think there is a video from Tech Insider about this. If I'm not, if it's either Tech Insider or it's Bloomberg. Yeah, I don't remember which one is it, but it's basically explaining the process of creating an emoji and making available for the internet per se. So basically on this paper, you need to address what is this emoji, why is this important, and how people are going to use it, and the meaning behind of that. So there is like an international federation that kind of regulates this, and they try to add a meaning to that. So once they create it, they are going to create a standard version of these emoji, trying to make available for the big platforms, as you said. So many of these big platforms, they are part of this console where everybody can be aware of it. And once they decided to add a new emoji, every one of them needs to address. That's why, for example, some applications, they have their own collections of emojis, and sometimes they use others platforms collections of emojis. I don't know if you know, but for example, Facebook, Messenger, and WhatsApp, they have a different sets of emojis, and sometimes one is more updates to the other one, and sometimes you use one emoji in one operation system, and then you send it to another one and just sends something weird. And that's because like emoji is not really well use it. So I think it's it's a cooperation of them rather than us. So they need to be aware of this, how this federation is trying to regulate and create new emojis. But it's as I said, takes about 2 years and some really interesting research about that.
Yeah, it sounds like standardization doesn't quite exist yet. So it's kind of the Wild West in terms of how either alt text or whatever is being created for them. And I guess it just comes as a surprise knowing that these big tech organizations so vocally advocate for diverse workspaces and accessibility that that hasn't been addressed yet. I wonder if it's in the works. Maybe we'll know in 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, many of these teams, they do have like today is kind of a new role, like a diversity specialist or something like this. I saw some positions like this on LinkedIn that people there like advocates. They help the companies to be kind of diverse in a sense. Another one that is really growing a lot is ISG, if I'm not wrong, environment, social, and government. Something like this. It's a new UN. Basically, UN has 17 objectives, sustainable objectives for the population that needs to be addressed by 2030. And the corporations today are calling this ESG, which stands for environmental, social, and government. Something like. Are you aware of this?
Yes,
You're just
I am.
like, yeah.
I am aware. There's somebody I know who has a venture firm dedicated to pushing up companies that specifically meet the UN standards. I've never actually seen this sort of thing discussed within any sort of company or industry, but if there's a push towards that, I'd love to know more about how those things can be advocated for within individual companies or organizations, because those are, I'm familiar with them and they're fantastic.
Yeah. I wish things moved fast on this matter. Take some time, but I mean, I think that the changes are out there, right? We're having a conversation about this. I think it's completely different than 10 years ago. It's not really fast as on the digital life, but I think I think it's moving rather than just not happening, something like this. I don't know. Do you agree with this, or it's just a crazy thought?
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't something that was being discussed, and I think there is a lot more awareness around looking at tech and at the way we conduct work and business in a more holistic sense. But I know there was someone else on the stage, so I want to step down and let them have their time to speak as well.
It's just us, but I can see there are some people in the audience there. I mean, if anyone like to jump, but I think we are 5 minutes past the time. I want to I want to be mindful with everybody's time. But it was a pleasure to have you here, Nina. Hopefully we can do other things. Like, where are you speaking from?
Florida today.
Florida. Okay. Perfect.
You can see the sunshine. All right. Well, obrigada. And I might reach out for more questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. And join the LinkedIn event if you like to say like, hey, I was the one that jumped on the stage. I don't know. I don't think I have you on LinkedIn, but I think people can connect with you there.
Cool.
So all right. So thank you, Nina. I'm going to remove here. Ciao, ciao. Bye. And I'm going to close the event, everybody. So this was a really fun series to host. Honestly, I learned so much with everybody and everyone's here. Like Nina today was a surprise, but we had about 10 different people jump in here on the stage to talk about different topics. You can see that later on YouTube. And if you'd like to check that out, the series entirely, you can find all the episodes here on this link that I'm adding to the chat. And for me, it was so interesting. And personally, I'm so grateful and thankful for having and get to know everybody that, here on this series. So maybe we can do something like this or another type of series in the near future. And until then, I hope you can stay safe and see you on another event. Bye-bye.